Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lauren Zach. I will be co-hosting today's training webinar. And just wanted to let everyone know we will get started in a minute or two. We are having attendees trickle in as we approach the 12 o'clock hour. So if you wouldn't mind just holding for a minute or two, we will get started in a second. Thank you. Okay, we have a few more trickling in. Excited to talk to everybody today. Hope everybody's having a great Friday so far and getting ready for a big holiday weekend at home. Just so everyone does know today, our attendees are on mute for this webinar, but there is an option to ask questions through the chat feature of this GoToWebinar. We don't really have a lot of time planned for questions at the end of our segment today, but any question that you would submit via the chat, I will certainly follow back up with you and get that question answered. And after our webinar is complete today, you'll also have my contact information if you don't already to reach out with any questions that come up as you digest this information. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. About 3 minutes past the hour. Want to first of all welcome everyone again. For those just joining, hope you're having a productive and positive Friday so far. My name is Lauren Zach. I'm the Director of Account Development here at Concept. And I want to, obviously thank everyone for joining today, but I also want to give a big thanks to Mahida, who helped in positioning this event for us today. And, so why are we all here? Why is this happening right now? Clearly, our lives have been flipped upside down by the COVID-19 pandemic. Our personal lives have changed. Our business and our industries have changed. It's an uncertain time. It's a challenging time. We're working remotely, and so we need to help find ways to stay productive and keep selling. And that's really the purpose of our training today, and why we're offering this free webinar for our partners and other industry members and companies to participate, so that we can get the word out about inside sales training and prospecting, and the importance that it has in everyday life, but especially inside of this pandemic situation that we're in. And we'll get more into it today. It's a time that, without being opportunistic, it's a good time for you guys to reach out to your customers and prospects, to stay in touch with them, to lend a hand, and to ultimately lay the groundwork for what's to come in your future relationships. So we did a webinar last Friday. The webinar on Friday last week was specifically focused to forklift sales. For those who are on the call today that might also sell forklifts as part of their offering, this training will still be applicable to you. And we had about 400 attendees last week, an overwhelming response. We are super excited about that. Today we've got about 60 registered for the event. And we're very glad to have you guys. So we appreciate it. We thought 20 people might be a good number to start with, but we are very happy with the turnout and appreciate your time. Many of the members that are joining are current customers of Concept, so thank you so much for your continued business and partnership. And then many are prospects and distributor manufacturers that we haven't worked with before, and we also thank you for your attendance. So, like I said, my name is Lauren Zach. I'm the Director of Account Development here at Concept. I've been with our company about 5.5 years, starting my career making cold calls on behalf of customers inside of the material handling space. And over the course of my tenure, I've risen through account management positions to land where I am today. And I'm a business development, sales enablement consultant. I oversee our customer facing team here at Concept, and I work to develop and expand business within key accounts and key networks. And material handling has been my real focus in my tenure here at Concept. But we do support other industries that kind of fall under that large supply chain umbrella. So we're working with, construction equipment manufacturers and distributors. We're working with supply chain in terms of logistics partners, 3PLs, freight forwarders, customs brokers, et cetera. But today, again, is mostly specific to material handling from a systems, engineered product, integrator, specialized equipment perspective. And over the last 5 years, I've traveled across the country. For those of you who know me, I basically live out of a suitcase, and now I'm forced to be home, so life is quite different. But I have made over 100 trips in the last 3 years visiting our customers and prospects that are equipment dealers and distributors, systems integrators, software, automation, robotics providers, and manufacturers of forklifts, batteries, storage allied products, conveyors, et cetera, et cetera. And when I visit these customers and prospects, I'm meeting with dealer development, dealer business managers, sales and marketing leaders, executive management, ownership, et cetera. And I'm really going out there to improve revenue generation and market share and through a variety of ways. So I want to turn it over to my co-host, Jason Weisner, who's also on the line today to introduce himself before we move into our presentation today.
Thank you, Lauren. Good afternoon. My name is Jason Weisner. I'm the Director of Production here at Concept. I came to Concept in 2012. I had 10 years of outside sales experience before beginning my journey here at Concept. And before the Director of Production, I began my career in sales development. So I was on the phone 8 hours a day, making phone calls. I then moved into training as well as an account manager at Concept. And today I oversee the training and production of 60 plus sales development representatives, in which majority of them, they work with material handling dealerships like yours across the entire country, generating sales qualified leads. I'm excited to be here. One, I think I get it. With the climate today, we all have been impacted. At one point, Concept, 3-4 weeks ago, we all worked out of a central location. We all had to move, right? We're all working remote today. With us, the responsibilities has not really changed, but with you guys, I can see some of that changing, in which you're going to be using the phone more. So I think that I'm excited, and I'm glad to be a part of this, that we could take our experience and share our process with you to help you guys during this time and really continue selling and being a resource to some of your clients.
Thank you, Jason. So our agenda today, now that we're through the introduction, is to talk a little bit about who Concept is. And we're not going to do that to bore you because it's not a sales presentation today. This is a training for you to help you in your roles. But we want to give you a little bit of perspective as to what we do. So we'll build some credibility if you don't know us, but also some insight to other areas inside of your own organization you should start paying attention to. So I'm going to turn into talk about Concept for just a minute. We were founded in 2002 on the concept of separating new business development from sales. And really, our founder and owner, Dan Harsh, when he started the company, was an outside sales himself, doing his own prospecting, his own appointment setting, going and quoting and closing his own opportunities. And he thought he would be more efficient and more effective for his organization if he could really just be focused on closing. If someone would bring him an opportunity or an appointment with a right fit customer so that he could ultimately do what he does best. And so years later, Dan founded Concept on that principle. I'm sure as salespeople, You also feel that pain. And so, we feel it's really important to separate it from the funnel, not only because salespeople might not have it as their number one skill set, but also because you're focused on your current customers. You're focused on closing big deals, and the needs surrounding prospecting require so much time and so much discipline that if you are not giving it what it requires, then you don't really have that pipeline to support you in your future. We've got over 100 employees located here in Medina, Ohio. You can see a picture of our beautiful 27,000 square foot office in Medina that is currently sitting vacant as we're all working from home, as Jason said. But we are 100% US based. None of our calling efforts, marketing efforts, or CRM efforts are going outside of the US. We have a portfolio of about 100 plus customers across our services. And like I said, they'll span several industries, but we are highly focused in material handling. So the services that we offer are outbound sales development and appointment setting. We manage inbound leads, whether those are coming from marketing or trade shows. We are a Salesforce and a HubSpot partner and consultant. So we do a lot of design and implementation work for our customers, as well as ongoing support in consultation for adoption. We are also a sales development training company, so you're getting a taste of that today on this webinar. And then we have a whole wide range of digital marketing services that really focus on awareness and driving results to ultimately qualify into leads. So we know that today is really focused about you and focused about what you're going to do on the phones in this time of pandemic, where you can't necessarily go out and see your customers like you once were able to. And so we're really focused on sales prospecting via the phone. But that being said, I wanted to give you a quick understanding of what we do and how we view lead generation. And so this funnel that you're looking at is how we really look at capturing interest, turning folks that are visiting a website into leads with account names that are driving down into be qualified opportunities. It's all about driving to ROI. A lot of companies are investing in marketing, they're investing in lead generation, they're investing in lists that they're procuring. But if there's no one that's actually driving those leads into qualified appointments, which are turning into opportunities in your pipeline, it's really not worth it. And so we get that. We're a sales company working for other sales organizations. It's all about ROI. And those investments in marketing, those investments in tech, in your website and in trade shows, those are, what you can look at as kind of tangible in outside of the organization, but salespeople are also investments as well. And so you need to think about that in your daily efforts. How are you building to contribution? And is your team seeing the ROI from your efforts? And so hopefully this prospecting that we're going to do over the next couple hours here will definitely help out. So like I said many times, we have been focused inside of material handling for about 17 years at Concept. Just wanted to give you guys an example as to some of the impact that we make in the material handling and supply chain industry. And so we are qualifying about 14,500 leads annually for our material handling partners. About 1,200 of those coming over per month, with about 39,000 calls per week. This is our bread and butter. This is what really has created a lot of long-lasting partnerships for Concept, and hopefully will give you an understanding through the rest of the training as to why we know what we're teaching. We don't know exactly what you do. We can't jump that fence and know about how you sell your engineered systems or how you sell your highly specified equipment. But we do know about the prospecting portion of today, and we're really excited to share what has worked at Concept as well as our best practices. And when we talk about leads, we're talking about sales qualified leads. We're not just talking about a name. We're not just talking about an account. We're talking about the right account, the right decision maker, the right need, and the right time frame. So that's enough about Concept. And Jason and myself, we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of today. And we're going to start with call preparation. Now that you know who we are, it's really talking about how to break up the pre-call and break up the call itself to make it easy and digestible for you. And so we're going to talk about metrics and key performance indicators. We're going to talk about who to call, how to leverage CRM, how to leverage the information that you know about your customers and prospects, how to build a pipeline and manage it, and then a quick checklist at the end that will really help you in preparing for your future conversations. And Jason Weisner is going to be leading our training today. I'll be coming in to add some color and some additional insights. But I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jason to start by helping us with prospecting by the numbers.
Thank you, Lauren. So I've worked with reps over the years, and a lot of people just figure they can pick up the phone and go. And that's not the case. Preparing for the call is just as important as the call itself. And where you need to begin is understanding KPIs. You need to set yourself daily KPIs, daily expectations of call volume you're trying to hit. The examples here, this is something Concept does internally. These are numbers that I hold my internal employees to on a daily basis. We make 80 to 100 plus outbound calls per day, and that's each person per day. Inside of that, and this is 17, 18 years of industry stats that we have here. Inside of your specific product and services, making 80 to 100 calls, we see 5 to 10 conversations with decision makers per day. That's roughly 8, 9, 10% completed call ratio. And when we speak to 5 to 10 people, we typically see 1 to 2 sales qualified leads or appointments generated. And the leads will differ. You'll see some leads that are the home run leads that are, people looking for, a project here in next 6 to 12 months. They'll be looking to add automation or looking at the facility, or they want you to come look at their facility for recommendations. That's essentially roughly a 25% close ratio that we see. And I'm not saying that you guys should make 80 to 100 calls a day. Like I get that. I know some of you are looking at that number going, "Phew, that's big. That's large." Keep in mind that's Concept. Your job is different from sales development. And when I train new employees, it's funny because I have this slide that I show these new employees. I call it super sales rep or super salesman. And I kind of explain to them the day in the life of a sales rep, right? I mean, you guys have so many responsibilities of keeping up with current clients, customer complaints, working on RFP, RFQ, and the list goes on and on. And the moral of the story is figure out your own KPIs that you can hold yourself accountable to. If you could dedicate 2 hours a day, uninterrupted time of calling, and again, uninterrupted time is the key. Hold yourself accountable to get 20 to 25 calls in that 2-hour span. Because what you'll see is one appointment or one webinar off of that.
And as I visit our customers and our prospects, I get the question all the time, what's your secret sauce? Why is Concept so much better? Why are you in business? Why do I need this for my organization? And I always tell them, which is absolutely true, is there's not necessarily a secret sauce. It's definitely a combination of the right tactics, the right processes, the right techs, the training of our people, the professionalism of our people. But it's mostly, like Jason said, about discipline. And this training today and just calling in general won't be super worthwhile for you if you're planning on making a call or two in the next several days. And so this is really the time to dig in and hone in on this skill set as business gets back to normal, whatever that new normal is. We have a feeling that phone work and email prospecting is going to look a whole lot different as maybe some facilities aren't willing to have salespeople in as much, or that you have to be invited in, or there's different regulations and different requirements to get in the facility that there are currently today, or really just before COVID hit. So this is the time to dig in and really set yourself up with some accountability and some key metrics to begin each day as you go to prospect via phone.
So preparing for this call, we understand the first step is, okay, I have to have KPIs. I need to make X amount of calls. To support that, you need to have data. This is the second checklist or second bullet point on your list to prepare for. And I know that, when I'm working with sales reps, I know that everyone has a really good process in place of working with current customers, staying in front of current customers. May not have such a great process when looking for new clients. However, when we're looking for a new list or new clients, there's resources out there to help you build up this data list, to assist in meeting your KPIs and calling. And that starts with things such as target accounts. Those are your wish list accounts that you've been wanting to get in front of. Leads from marketing. If you have a platform of marketing that's driving leads to you, my advice is get an understanding of what they're sending you. What type of marketing information did that prospect receive? How did they engage with that marketing information? That's going to give you such a great talking points when you're following up with leads from marketing. Leads from trade shows. These are contacts that you developed either they visited your booth, or you're going to get a list of contacts from these trade shows that attended this event and they had some sort of interest inside of your space. Then lastly is data lists. We have tools such as DMV Hoovers or Info USA. My recommendations is keep it from the company side and not contacts, but you can strategically put together a list of essential companies based around SIC codes, annual revenue, or facility size.
Yeah. And the only one that Jason didn't hit on, and that is, such an interesting topic right now, is just actually calling on current customers as well with an air of a prospecting tone, but also a tone of checking in on their well-being, not personally, their organizational well-being, and seeing what needs that they have that you can help with, being a partner to them, talking about what their future looks like, even if it doesn't mean a sale tomorrow. So calling upon your current customers right now in this pandemic and shutdown is very helpful. And later we're going to talk about the differences in calling a current customer versus calling a prospect, because there's two different styles. You're going in with different levels of relationship and information, and so we'll dive a little bit deeper into that. But I'd encourage you, if you do not feel equipped with information right now or lists for you to call on, reach out to your internal teams, reach out to your marketing team, reach out to your sales manager. There is data that you can utilize that your organizations have. It might not be super organized, it might not be piped into your CRM yet, but it's worth asking that question so that you don't really have to spend the time looking for the right accounts. You can get started and move past this step. And I mentioned CRM, and I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on CRM. I know this is a sticky subject. I can hear the moans, even though everybody's muted, as to working inside a CRM. If you don't have one, now's the time to dig in. And I'm sorry, now if you have one, now's the time to dig in. Now's the time to learn how to utilize the CRM as a tool and not just a task. If you don't have one, it really doesn't matter how you're applying the utilization of CRM, and we're talking about process and things of that nature. We can apply what we're going to teach you to your Black Book or to your Excel list. And really, Jason will kind of walk through each individual tab here as to how do you maximize the utilization of your CRM. And so I'll turn it over to him.
So I also have the same feeling when I can picture everybody as soon as we hit the slide as well. And again, to Lauren's point, it doesn't matter if it's a CRM Black Book or Excel spreadsheet. The takeaways from this is, how can I be efficient with what I have? And again, we're doing the math here. We said we need to make X amount of calls. We have to have data to support X amount of calls. It's simply having something in place to manage that data now. And again, Excel, spreadsheet, Black Book, CRM, whatever you have. My advice is have some sort of account segmentation or staging. And what that is how am I tracking the progression of every account? Meaning, let's say you call an account and you have a decision maker's name. You haven't spoken to them. How are you tracking that? How are you making that different? Here at Concept, we label it as identify decision maker. Or if we do speak to someone, it's not an opportunity, we label that as nurturing. So the important of that is you're going to have all this data. You have to be able to separate it and be able to understand what portion of your pipeline that specific account is in. Then secondly is just profiling, the account profiling of market intelligence. What do you find valuable to understand or track with that specific company? Because again, at some point, you may want to come back and reference that account or that company. And it'd be neat to understand who the competition is, the size of facility, the boxes or totes per day, or types of automation they have, or types of conveyors they have. You want to be able to reference those types of things. And that leads right into activities or conversation logging. You may speak to someone today that there's not a need. You may have spoken to that decision maker 2, 3 times, and you're gathering all this information. So maybe you want to call this account back 3 months from now. It's a good place to go back and reference some of the notes you had to get reminded of the conversations. And that plays hand in hand to future follow-up tasking. If I uncover future timeframes of purchasing or trends, I could then task how I want to follow up with that specific person. Then lastly is opportunity management. Let's say you get with someone or you meet with someone, how are you tracking the progression of that opportunity? Meaning, I know there's a need. Am I really working that? Did I do a demo yet? Have I quoted that yet? What stage is really that it? And again, the point of this is it provides you insight and understanding of every account. It paints that picture of where that account is inside our process before becoming an opportunity.
Yeah. It keeps you organized. It helps promote process. It makes you more efficient in your prospecting. It will make you more efficient today inside of this pandemic, and it will absolutely help you in your future. And so, like I said, if you haven't been a friend of CRM, or you've been avoiding training, or you've been avoiding entering in above the bare minimum that your sales manager asks you to, now's the time to really learn how to utilize the CRM as a tool. And Jason talked a little bit about market intelligence. So we know that every CRM is slightly different. Not every CRM has these fields. Maybe yours has fields that are specifically built to fit your business. But we're going to walk through what is important to log and leverage inside of CRM.
Yeah, this is great reference points and a great example of the things we just covered. And this is an example of how Concept today manages some accounts. So I mean, just logging activities to go to a central place and see the types of activities I had, the phone calls, the emails, etc. Looking at marketing intelligence, the types of equipment, software, competition, number of facilities. This is great, or even the contacts associated to it. What's the name? What's the title? What are they responsible for? And even purchasing timeframes. Are we building that sales pipeline? So to me, this kind of paints the picture, at least to you guys, you should understand that this is painting that picture or gathering puzzle pieces for this company. So when you go back, again, you could be very strategic on your calls.
Yeah, and your CRM might have information piped into it that would help you build strategic list views. It might not right now, but a CRM is only as good as the information that's inside of it. So we encourage you to start to add this type of information. We've got an example here of some conveyor information, types of metal, facility size, industries, things of that nature. And really, you can start to build some strategic list views based on what's inside of your CRM. So right now, inside of this pandemic, we're helping our customers to pull based on SIC code and industry. We're looking at food and bev and pharma and medical, certain aspects of logistics. We're focusing in on those essential manufacturers versus the non-essentials versus the ones dealing with raw goods that are shut down versus the e-commerce that's shut down right now. And so we encourage you to reach out internally at your organization to better understand how to pull lists and strategic list views for yourself if you don't know how to. If you have any questions on essential businesses and better understanding SICs, be sure to reach out to me after today's call and I can help lead you in the right direction. So we've prepared for the call. We've started to get some data that we can call on. We know what to log. We know how to log it and stay organized and efficient. But what's really important is the next step of identifying the right person to talk to. So who are we looking for?
And before you pick up the phone, to Lauren's point, we have to identify the decision maker. And that's the first goal. I need to understand who actually makes the decision or sign the checks. And there's two different types of decision makers. There's an actual decision maker, again, that person that makes that final decision, that person that signs that final check. There's also an influencer. This person plays a role, right? They can influence the decision for a purchase. And there's 4 different ways you can identify a decision maker. The first way is gatekeeper receptionist. I'll be honest with you, this is the most fearful way, or what pushes people away from cold calling. Objections come with that. But I'm telling you this, that picking up a phone and calling, even sometimes you'll hit some of those objections, is the fastest way of getting a name, fastest way of getting a referral of someone, right? The second one is phone directories. And a lot of companies are now using automated systems in which, yeah, it's listing list of departments. But one of the tips we do here at Concept is, if my department's not listed, I may just hit a random department to go into and enlist their help. Well, I don't know. I came here. I was actually looking for the person that oversees this. The third part is LinkedIn, and I think everybody knows LinkedIn is more so like a up-to-date resume, right? Or up-to-date search tool. Everybody keeps their titles and positions up to date on LinkedIn. However, if you don't have premium, that you're limited on searches, you're limited on number of people you can actually look up. So one of the things, or one of the tips and tricks we do here at Concept with LinkedIn, is using Google. And what I mean by that is we'll put in the title of the decision maker I'm looking for. We will type in the title, we'll type in the company name, and we'll type LinkedIn at the end of that. And 9 times out of 10, inside of your Google results, it shows that specific person. Lastly, Google, right? You can search, you can go to someone's website, maybe they're listed on the About Me section. Maybe you can look up different news articles or listings, or something that's pushing that specific company to find that specific title. Right? So understand that as you, again, as Lauren mentioned, you have the KPI set, you have the data support, you have a CRM. My first goal is to get a name. That's the first puzzle piece I'm looking for. And these are 4 different ways or 4 different platforms of how to identify them.
Yeah. And the best tip to remember here is try to make the call first. Try not to get too caught up on research before you need to. And so calling a gatekeeper or receptionist, those lines are still open. Trust me, guys. Our team is calling every day. We are still talking with operators and receptionists, even in businesses where people are working remotely. Those phone calls are being answered. For some needs, related to equipment, you might be talking with a maintenance manager. You might be talking with a warehouse manager. You might be talking with someone that doesn't have their information listed in LinkedIn. And so how else are you going to find it other than calling? So definitely try that first. But I love Jason's tip about kind of that workaround and that loophole of LinkedIn. Hopefully nobody from LinkedIn's listening, and they'll close that up in the future. But it's a great tool. It's a great workaround. And especially with, automation, warehouse and facility design. We're not looking for maintenance managers, right? We're looking for VPs and directors of warehousing. We're looking for VPs and directors of supply chain, logistics, operation, production, procurement. Those folks do have their information on LinkedIn. So whether or not you have Navigator, it doesn't matter. It's still a tool to utilize, but we, again, suggest calling in first. And so when you do call, you have to talk with that gatekeeper. Jason told you that's a fear a lot of salespeople have, is just getting past that gatekeeper. Some gatekeepers can be very helpful. Others can really create a dead end for you. And so Jason's going to walk through some common objections and how to overcome those objections to get past and find that contact.
And you do get objections. And again, as Lauren and I mentioned, it's what turns people away from prospecting. However, you'd be surprised that you don't get as many objections as you think. Secondly, during this time, or at least what I'm seeing a change with the climate we're at today, a lot of gatekeepers are now more prone to give us direct dials and cell phone numbers. That's something different I'm seeing. But with that said, when I'm training sales reps on how to get past gatekeepers and the different objections, I teach them 3 different methods, or 3 different ways of doing so. What I'm saying to you is figure out which method or which process works for you, because one process may work for you, the other one may not. The first one, I think all of us know. We know this. Everybody in sales has been taught this. Control the conversation. Always lead the call. Always take control of the call. They aren't in. When do you expect them back? right? You're taking control of that conversation. And again, all of us has been taught that. But two other methods: enlist their help. Hey, maybe you could help me out. I'm really not sure who to speak with. That the person that oversees this. I see that work, right? Befriend them. Smile, laugh, use their name. Gatekeepers can be a big resource, right? They know when the decision maker is in. And I know during this time they may not be in, they may be working from home, but they know when these guys go to lunch. They know when they come back from lunch. They know when they're in their office. They know, all the details and information. So out of those, figure out what works for you. But I want you to understand this. I know that every sales rep has that mind that every phone call, if it's not a lead, I'm done with it. I'm tossing it out the door, or I didn't get past the gatekeeper. The goal of the gatekeeper is to get a puzzle piece. You may not talk to the decision maker today. There's a high likelihood that may not happen. What I'm saying to you is it is a win when you gather one small puzzle piece. If you get a name, that's a puzzle piece gathered, right? That's something you didn't have before. That's a different call. I'm now not calling asking for the person that oversees this. I'm now calling a week or 2 weeks later and saying, hey, this is Jason with Concept. Is John around today? Or transfer me to John. Different type of call. So if you gather one puzzle piece, just the decision maker's name, just understand that's a win.
Yeah, and the puzzle pieces, as Jason said, are mostly focused on contacts during this stage. But another tip is to take it a step further. If you do have a gatekeeper on the line or a receptionist operator on the line who is giving you information, you can ask more than just a name. You can ask, hey, do you have any idea how many forklifts you run? Or do you know if you have conveyors in your warehouse? You can start to ask questions. Do you know your facility size? Now, they might not know the answer, and that's not a problem. My mom always taught me the worst thing that someone could say is no, or that don't know. And so take an extra moment to try to gather more information. Like Jason said, it will help you on the next time that you speak with that gatekeeper, or help you in prioritizing that company in the future. So again, we've kind of gone through the KPIs, we've gone through preparing for the call, understanding how to get to decision makers and locate those decision makers through a variety of methods, overcoming the gatekeeper. The last thing that we're going to talk about before we actually jump into the call itself is managing and building a prospecting pipeline. This is our business to a T. And this is prospecting and call work to a T. If you're going in and trying to find an opportunity for yourself today, it's not the right way to go about calling. It's not the right mindset, because that outcome will be, a 1 in a million chance. Calling in, especially for some of these large projects, is like finding a needle in a haystack. And so we have to think about how we're going to build a pipeline, how we're going to set ourselves up for the future. Jason, you want to take them through the why and the how, and then we're going to circle back on this checklist before we move into the call itself.
So 2002, you guys see the quote there. That holds today. This is what Concept lives and breathes. It's not about building the sales today. It's about building a pipeline for tomorrow. And I'll explain pipeline building here shortly, but managing and building a pipeline, from managing a pipeline side of things, just understand that, it all starts with uncovering names and contact information, but you need to figure out your own series or activity series, how you're going to manage and call these records, meaning mix it up a little bit, right? Have a call, leave a voicemail, send an email, just have some sort of rhyme or reason there, right? From building a pipeline, and I know a lot of people are looking at building a pipeline going, all right, I'm looking for a sale today. I deal with that frequently, right? You're doing yourself a disservice if you're not focused on pipeline building. I've seen a lot of people get decision makers on the phone. There's nothing going on. They hang up. It's lost. I'm never calling again. I've been there. I've seen that. I see that constantly. And when I was in sales development, my manager and I, we used to have all these conversations. And one of the things that I used to say to him when he talked about my work, I used to come to him and I'd say, every single month, I did not have to find a sales qualified leader appointment that month. They're all queued up for me. And this is the perk of pipeline building. When I got someone on the phone, my goal was to get off there with at least a time frame or two. I knew when companies looked over budget. I knew when they were estimating for a project to take place. I knew when to call them back. So you guys need to get in the mindset of looking at the products and service that you have. And it's about matching, right? Where do I fit? When do I fit? So as you're presenting these products, where do I fit? When do I fit? Where do I fit? When do I fit? And that's the key of pipeline building is understanding purchasing trends, understanding when people evaluate.
Yeah. And now is a great time to think about pipeline building because you have the time to do it, but also because unfortunately, due to the pandemic, a lot of the opportunities and a lot of the next purchase timeframes that you might already have identified are put on hold, right? Budgets are locked down, organizations aren't, necessarily ready to pull the trigger on something that they thought they were going to be ready to do. And so, this is a time to kind of reflect on what type of pipeline building you've done in the past. Think about how you can change that today and start to prepare for your future so that when you do get back on the road, when companies are opening back up, that you have a better understanding of what's to come. Like Jason said, really just setting yourself up. So here's another thing to set yourself up. It's our call prep checklist. Jason, you want to run through this?
Take a step back, and I know Lauren just covered it, but we covered a lot. We found that there's a lot to think about and prepare for before actually picking up the phone. KPIs. I have to hold myself accountable to X amount of calls per day. I have to have dedication to achieve that. Data. I have to have data to support those calls. CRM or spreadsheet, whatever you have, I have to have somewhere to manage that. I have to understand there's different ways and tactics of handling the gatekeeper, getting around them. I have to understand the first goal is to uncover the decision maker. I have to understand there's objections there with the gatekeeper that I have to be prepared for. Then lastly with that is just building and managing a pipeline. I have to understand how I'm going to manage or how often I'm going to call voicemail and just change up some things with the data I have. I have to understand that I'm there to figure out where I fit when I build my pipeline. And as we go through here, I'm asking you guys, in addition to that, to make your own checklist, right? What is the goal of the call? And pending the situation, the goal can change. Yes, we all want to sell today. The ultimate goal is to sell. I mean, if I get the decision maker phone, if you guys get the decision maker on the phone, good chance you're gonna sell to them. But there's other goals. If there's not a need now, or maybe they're not familiar, maybe it's a large warehouse, it's that wish list account. Maybe an introduction is a goal. Maybe a warehouse evaluation is the goal, or even something as a simple goal of getting a name or email of the decision maker. Do I know what I'm going to say, or do I have a call outline or agenda? And what I'm saying is, we're not scripted. Neither should you. What I'm saying is, you have to have a structure in place. Figure out what products and services you can ultimately have, or what you can discuss, and have a structure in place on how you're going to pivot from one to the other. What information do you want to leave the call with? What do you want to bring into your CRM or your Excel document about that company that you want to reference? Contact information, brand awareness, intelligence about their operations, intelligence about the competitors. Then what is the next steps I'm trying to establish? Am I trying to get a meeting, webinar, appointment?
And I know that the preparation might seem like not a big deal, but it really is worth the time. Preparing yourself is worth the time, especially if this is not something that you do every day. So you might have some fears surrounding calling. You might just be a little uncomfortable or a little uncertain. And that confidence or that lack of confidence shows through. You might have it in person, but calling and talking to somebody out of the blue, especially during an interesting and challenging time for their organization, might not be something that you're very familiar with. So just take a moment to prepare yourself, get yourself set up. Day one, it might take a little bit longer to prepare yourself than day 2, 3, and 4 as you start to embark on calling more, but it's definitely worth it. And so we wanted to provide you with this checklist. Now we're really going to move into the actual call itself, making the material handling call. Um, and really, it's going to come down to having a little bit of structure here. And we're going to go through, we're going to break it down into the introduction, to navigating the conversation itself, You're not talking at them, you're talking with them. It's a real life organic conversation. We're going to teach you how to navigate through that and still drive the call while letting the customer or prospect talk about what they want. We're going to talk about closing for a next step. And that next step might be continued nurturing, or it might be a physical appointment, or it might be a webinar. And so we're going to explain all the different ways that you can close. And then lastly, we're going to go over some common pitfalls for you to remember as you embark on this journey. So again, we're starting off with the intro, but we also want to kind of give you an understanding of the structure of the call. And I just walked through the introduction, the conversation, and the close, but Jason's going to walk you through some tips that will really help keep in mind, really help you stay focused and effective while you're calling.
And I know you guys are looking at this slide going, well, that's their process. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to go inside of this, and we'll explain the changes, the tips and tricks here. But those are the three parts of a conversation. I mean, you have to keep it simple. Don't overthink exactly what's inside of that call. Yeah, there's some strategy, but it's introduction, conversation, close. And the goal of this inside of this structure is to, especially now, you're there to be a resource, show some empathy there, but you're trying to get them to talk, right? Trying to get them engaged inside of that conversation.
It's not rocket science, right? That um, you are trying to get the prospect or the customer to talk more than you on a prospecting call. But it's just a common pitfall. It's something that we see happen all the time when you get nervous, when you don't feel prepared, when it's not something you do all the time. And so keep that in mind. It should be about 75-25. You're going to ask them open-ended questions. We're going to talk through that to get them talking and to really have them explain their needs, them explain what types of equipment they utilize. And so Jason will break down here the 4 components of the introduction that should give you a good start.
So as we look at this, the components inside of it are introduce yourself, the purpose of your call, credibility, engage. And I know some of you are probably looking at this like, that doesn't look different to me. However, I'm telling you it is. And we've all gone through some sort of sales training. I've gone through the Carnegie training myself, and I did a ton of research. And this is just putting psychology behind the introduction. I did a lot of research on how the brain reacts to the conversation, and the introduction is the most important part. I have to get them engaged. I was trained, and I could bet because I've worked with so many sales reps that you were trained, or you all have the same introduction of, this is who I am, this is what my company does. Then you tell the purpose. So what you're seeing there is the purpose and the credibility or the company is flipped. The human brain makes a decision on your call, especially cold calling on the phone, in 12 to 15 seconds. Now, if I called and I said, hey, I'm with Concept, we do XYZ, they already said, well, there's 5, 6 other calls that did the same thing, no interest, bump. They're off the phone. It's done, right? How can I get them engaged in the conversation? Purpose. My purpose is the key. I have to get them engaged and understanding who my company is. And 9 times out of 10, if I call and say, hey, I'm with Concept, I'm calling you because of this, I want to understand your operations and I want to be a resource for you. If they don't know my company, they're going to ask me, well, who are you guys? What do you do? Once that hits, they're sold. They're inside of that conversation. The conversation is going to continue because I'm going to engage with the customer now. I'm going to do that with an open-ended question to get them discussing what's going on in the current climate or environment, to get them discussing their operations.
Yeah, and everybody has their own way of messaging here. If you follow these steps, be yourself. That's really key. So here's an example. Hey, my name's Lauren Zach. I'm calling from Concept Material Handling, calling to check on you in this challenging time, position myself as a future resource. Do you know who we are? Oh, you don't? Well, we're a material handling solutions provider. Can you tell me about your material handling equipment, or your automated systems, or your industrial batteries, or your racking, et cetera? And opening up there, as Jason said, that's key. And we're going to teach you about the who, what, where, when, why, how types of questions that you should be incorporating into any calling that you're doing, or really any customer interaction or prospect interaction, so that you're not having to pull information from them in a way that's strenuous or that feels unnatural and robotic. So our best tips to remember on this intro are: be confident, be yourself. You might have a call outline in front of you to help you, but the second that you sound like a robot, you will lose that call. Stating that purpose, as Jason talked about right now, I would just highly encourage you to show a lot of empathy in your calling. We have instructed our whole team of sales development reps to do this. Call the elephant in the room, right? There's something happening in the world that's taking precedence above normal day-to-day business, normal day-to-day personal life. And so let's talk about that you might be working remotely, or that your facility might be undergoing some changes, whether that be up in business or down in business. Reach out and let them know that you are there for them. You're checking in on them. You want to see how their well-being is. Like I said at the start of this call, showing that empathy is really key, especially right now. Show that humanity. Be clear and concise, right? And part of being clear and concise is recognizing that tone and tempo of the other person on the line. When you're in person, you can read those, cues that they're giving, those physical cues. You don't get that over the phone, but you can hear verbal cues. You can tell how fast they want to take the call. You can tell their level of interest, whether they're, kind of blowing you off or if they're really engaged and listening. And so we want you to recognize that, and we want to match it, or to try to drive the conversation in a similar style. And earlier we talked about cold versus warm. Jason's going to run through, right? If you are calling a prospect that you've never talked to before, you may not even know anything about them. There's a difference than calling a current customer of yours. Both are very helpful right now. Both are very needed right now. Most of our call today is really talking about the prospecting side of the house and maybe some colder information, but it's absolutely applicable to your current customers as well. Maybe thinking about expanding the share of wallet and the business that you're doing together.
And cold versus warm, as we look at this, no contact name versus contact name, previous conversation held versus no intelligence versus intelligence, no credibility versus credibility. So cold, you're starting off fresh. Warm, I define there's two different types of warm conversations. One is, to Lauren's point, it's a current customer. Another warm conversation is they started off cold, there was no need. However, we held some sort of conversation. Still the same structure inside of your introduction. You're still introducing yourself. You still have to explain the purpose of your call. Credibility changes. It's either I have to establish credibility of my company, or I have to, build credibility by referencing intelligence that I uncovered. And I always teach people this because I've worked with hundreds of sales reps over the years, and one of the biggest struggle is one type of warm call. And the warm call I'm talking about is the one that I've already had that cold call conversation. It's not a current customer. It's not a lead yet. This is a big struggle. And a lot of people come to me and go, hey, how do I approach this call? And again, I mentioned it's the same process. The goal of this does change. I mean, you are introducing yourself. You are, discussing the previous conversation to build that credibility. But what you know versus what don't you know technique is what I teach. What do I know? I reference the things of what I uncovered in the last call. What don't I know? My goal is to, find purchasing trends and frames, but also get answers to the things I don't know.
Yeah. And I'll give you a tip here too, just to avoid checking in, just checking in. Everybody's always just checking in. I get those emails all the time. I'm sure you get them, and I'm sure that you've sent them before and thought, man, I really hope I get a call back or I get an email back, and it's met with silence. And the reason is because it doesn't really bring value to that customer or prospect. Checking in on what? What's the intent, like Jason said? What are you trying to learn from them? What are you trying to show them? You know, I would encourage you to think about the type of information that you're even providing them when you're just checking in. You can reach out and let them know of a story that you found on the news that you felt was beneficial for them to read. Provide them with a case study or an example of something that one of your other customers is struggling with that you help them to overcome. They don't have to be these beautiful put together marketing one pagers. It can be an example written by you, from you, in a couple bullets to try to capture their interest. You're providing them value. You're giving them an example of something else. It's insight that they don't have. And I'd also encourage you, just in general, to stop using words like only. Stop using words like just at the beginning of a sentence or a statement. We only offer this. We are just checking in, or we just do this. It really minimizes your opportunity. It minimizes your credibility. It minimizes the area of discussion and kind of pigeonholes you as well. So don't just check in, provide them with something, even if it's not specifically about their business, it's something that would relate to their business as well. So we've gotten past the intro, we've engaged that customer with an open-ended question, and now we're going to talk about the discovery component. And this is really the most important part of the call because it's something that is driving and opening the conversation.
And I mentioned this a few times leading up to this, but the importance of this is vital. You guys have to have the mindset of where do I fit, when do I fit type mentality. Think of the products and services that you can offer. Try getting a time frame. The key to this, the discovery component, is asking open-ended questions and really just I don't want to take away from the sales side, but ask open-ended questions to get an understanding of what they're going through today in today's climate. Get an understanding of their operations. What pain points do they have inside of the operations? What would they like to? What's their wish lists of things they'd like to improve on, right? And the best way to do that is open-ended questions, right? What type of automation do you have inside of your facility? How are you moving products? When do you review budget? What type of projects do you have coming up, right? What type of integrations, expansions, consolidation plans? But the goal is really to get them talking. You want them talking most of the time. You are driving the conversation with open-ended questions.
So you're matching their needs with your solution. And who, what, where, when, why, again, something that you can apply not only on the phone, but when you're emailing with the customer or when you're visiting a customer or prospect. And as we're building call outlines for our customers inside of material handling, we are basically coming up with who, what, where, when, why questions to position different equipment and software, engineering, design work, service parts and maintenance. And we know that we have several different organizations on the line today who offer vastly different products and services. And so what we wanted to do was kind of walk you through some examples of who, what, where, when, why in positioning products and services that you might offer. And we encourage you that after the call today, as you're preparing your outline for yourself, or if you're preparing some tips that you're writing down on a Post-it note at your desk, at your home office to refer to later on, that you think back to some questions and write them down as an example for you to keep in mind. So like I said, we're building call outlines for our customers inside of material handling. These are questions that are proven to be successful. And I'm going to start with equipment and software. How many shifts do you operate? What type of material handling equipment do you utilize? What brands of equipment do you utilize? What type of racking do you have? How are you handling your staffing during this time? That's a hot topic one right now, whether it's absentee of employee or that they have more staff than they've ever had. What software solution are you utilizing for managing order entry, shipping and receiving? How's your experience been? What do you like about it? What would you improve? How do you deliver carts and totes? How large is your facility? What time of year is your peak season? How long does it last? When's your busy time? How do you handle staffing during your busy time? What types of batteries do your forklifts operate on? How do you currently handle changing those batteries? How do you charge those batteries? How often are you purchasing them? So those are some examples on that equipment and software side of the house. When we're talking about engineering, design, and projects that might take anywhere from 6 to 24 months to implement and sell and design, We're asking questions like, what issues are you experiencing with throughput? How large is your facility and are you challenged for space? Are you downsizing or reworking your facility and why? When's the next project that you have planned? What challenges have you encountered in managing process and flow of inventory and product in your facility? What systems have you implemented to assist with labor pains? Who do you work with now for your design and consultation and installation needs? Are you happy with the level of service that you receive? Do you feel a frequency of service is appropriate? Are they always out there fixing the equipment and making tweaks and changes, or are you really able to operate without a hitch? What do you think some of the major contributors are that are causing your costs to be out of line? Some of the questions that we ask as a partner are, pretty early on inside of learning about that customer. So some of the questions that you can ask and that we turn over to our sales people that we work for might be a step above. They might be a little bit more fine-tuned, a little more pointed, because you're coming in with even more expertise about the value proposition. So if you felt like some of the things I said today were kind of remedial, that's because we're really focused on getting the foot in the door for many of our customers, but we do position in lots of our relationships those more advanced questions, talking about their pains and their costs and their downtime and things of that nature. And then on the service and parts end, who are you working with? Are you happy with the level of service? Where can they improve? I talked about the frequency. That's a real key one right now, as people are utilizing their equipment more than they ever have if they're really seeing an influx in their business. Are their maintenance schedules appropriate to make sure that they're mitigating against downtime later on? Um, the part here is, though, there's a lot of questions, right? Who, what, where, when, why, how. You could probably come up with a list of 50. We don't have to ask them all on the same call, but we do want to be logical in the way that we ask them. And so when we train our teams, we're really looking at identifying the product and service that has the most potential for an opportunity. So maybe you have an idea as to where to start with a prospect. Maybe you have an idea as to where to start with a current customer because of your past conversations. Start there and then move on into the second most potential, and so on and so forth. It will give your call structure. It will allow for you to be flexible. It's a conversation. Remember, you don't need them to answer a survey, right? And so who, what, where, when, why questions are not survey like. They really allow for it to be an organic and natural and open conversation. But if you're going in there and you're totally discombobulated and you're asking one question about equipment and then the next question about service and there's no tie-in, it can really feel disjointed. And so we want you to try to avoid that part.
And really some tips inside this conversation. I know there's a lot we covered of what goes inside of that conversation, but my first tip is be intentional. And I remember working with some sales reps over the years, and one in particular is coming to my mind, but they come to me like, hey, I'm just not getting appointments. I'm not getting the leads. Intentional is purpose, meaning if you have intentions to help these individuals, it's going to come across on the phone. Your intentions come across on the phone. And what I was finding with this person, their intentions was to sell. They're pretty aggressive. They weren't there trying to understand their business. They weren't there trying to be a resource for that person. They didn't have the right intentions. Have a healthy mix of open-ended, closed-ended questions. And I get you, you can't ask nothing but open-ended questions. What you can do is control the conversation. What you can do is leverage the open-ended questions to get them speaking. There are going to be instances where you have to add closed-ended questions, and that's fine. Avoid survey, right? You don't want to give them a call and say, what's this? What's this? How many this? How many that? Right? Doesn't make sense. Those open-ended questions, you're trying to get them to talk about specific products or services, right? Leverage those questions with the who, what, when, where, why, and how. Get them speaking with those open-ended questions. However, match the needs with the solution. Where do I fit? When do I fit? Where do I fit? When do I fit? What products and services are you there to discuss on the phone? And how can I play matchmaker of matching my company with theirs?
It's all about that mutual benefit, that fit, that understanding, positioning things that don't make sense to their business. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Surveying never works. It is a telemarketing uh, function. It is not the function of inside sales. It is not the function of someone that knows about the products and services that they're positioning. So, avoid surveying. That's going to make the person on the phone say, man, why am I doing this? Why am I having this call or answering these questions? And, as I'm going out and meeting with lots of our customers, I've done many trainings before about inside sales. And I've heard a lot of veterans when we're doing mock calling or even doing live calling where we're all sitting in the same room and somebody um, has their cell phone on speakerphone and they're calling a prospect to see if what we're learning is something that we can implement. And that's a real important part of our prospecting training is the actual implementation. You can learn all you want, but unless you're going to start to take some internal feedback and notes as to if you're being successful with that implementation or not, that's where it really counts, right? So I've heard 10-year veterans pick up the phone after a training on their first call and say, hey, just calling to see if you have any needs I can help out with right now. I'd say just to get that out of your vocabulary. Needs I can help out with right now. That is not the reason why you're calling. That is not your intent. And so again, Jason went through a lot of these questioning tips and these strategy tips. At the end of the day, this is supposed to be a organic conversation, a healthy conversation. You don't want to shoot yourself in the foot by closing it down uh, and asking yes or no questions or positioning yourself in a way that the prospect just doesn't have a need for what you're doing today, right? So listening is a huge part of what we do. And listening should be a huge part of what you do, especially on the phone, because we don't have those cues in person. We don't have equipment to look at or facilities to go through and point out areas of consultation. So Jason's going to kind of walk you through what active listening is versus passive listening right now.
And this goes back to intent. We keep using the word intent, right? But your intent is to really listen to what's going on there. Someone that's doing passive listening is really not hearing what's being told to them. They're not paying attention to understand the pain points, to understand the buying signals, to really understand what's going on at that operations or what's going on at their facility, right? Active listening, you have a different, your intentions are different now. You're trying to understand the underlying meaning of what they're saying. You want a deeper level of what's going on inside of their operation, right? You're more involved in there, right? They're providing you some sort of pain points. They're letting you know what issues they have in their facility. You want to be able to understand that. You want to be able to provide feedback to that.
Yeah. And I like to use the example in active and passive listening, actually taking it out of a business scenario. So if you think about the last time that you got in an argument with a loved one or a friend, and you think about how they argue, you can tell really quickly whether someone's actively listening to you or passively listening to you. And, arguments for the most part are difficult and they're stressful because people are being vulnerable. They're sharing their emotions. They're sharing what pains they have. They're trying to give you an understanding of maybe how they're feeling or what you did that hurt their feelings. And so that person that is basically just waiting for you to stop talking before they can tell you how they feel. All right, that person that is just interrupting you constantly to give their 2 cents or to push back or to argue back. Don't be that guy or gal with your customer. Actively listen, understand what they're saying, and validate that you heard it. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on today too, is that thanking them for sharing that information and then responding is a way to really transition that conversation from a need or a pain into a solution. So you might, in your quarantine, have an argument or two that pops up inside of your house. Maybe what I pointed out will help there, but it will definitely help you when you're prospecting and when you're talking with your current customers. Be that person that they can be vulnerable with. Be that person that wants to help them with their needs and their pains. And so pain, great example, or great transition, excuse me, to move into the next side is identifying and responding to pain. And Jason's going to walk through how we do just that.
So we talked about all this stuff that's happened inside the conversation. We talked about the active listening, and I kind of mentioned this in the previously, but pain points is really something that you're listening for inside of active listening. And really what that is a problem that a customer stated, right? You have to listen to that, right? Accuracy of orders, staffing, labor costs, can't get the product out the door fast enough, throughput issues, product damage, operator discipline, cost of replacing batteries, downtime associated with broken equipment. Those are examples of pain points that could potentially happen on the phone call. So you have to acknowledge that. Get in the mindset of, and this is part of the listening component. When someone says something, acknowledge that you heard that. Oh, the accuracy of orders. I have some issues there. Oh, wow. Okay, so you're having issues with the accuracy of orders. And I mean, I know the goal. You're trying to get to the root of the problem. Get to understand if demand increased, but do it in an open-ended question way. You want them talking about that specific pain point. What's going on with the accuracy of orders? Walk me through those types of things. And you guys know the last component there of the pain point. Respond, and respond with the intention to help, provide a solution. They're going to sit there and convey this pain point. You're going to get a deep understanding of really what's going on with that specific pain point or how that has started occurring for them. Provide your product from there.
Yeah. And if you call in and you ask someone about the pains or the challenges or the problems that they're having inside of their operation, depending on the type of person that you get on a line, that person might not be willing to share anything. Everything's fine. Everything's good. We have no needs. We have no problems. Well, we certainly know that that's not true, right? Not everybody is jumping to share their pain with you. So you might have to kind of open up and ask more questions surrounding needs and give them examples of some of those pains that Jason went through, those labor costs or downtime, et cetera. And so they might not want to be vulnerable, but if you're giving them the option to say, yeah, that's actually something that we do have an issue with, then you can lead back into learning more about it. Um, and I also wanted to make a point here too. You might be calling on your current customers and checking in on their needs and their well-being inside of this time with COVID. You might call in and their pain might be about you. I'd love to say that as we work for our customers, that we never get a conversation where someone's complaining or unhappy with service or with product. It comes up, it happens. Today, more than ever, it is so important for you on the other line to validate and fix that problem. No one can afford to lose a customer right now. No one can afford to have bad publicity or bad word of mouth associated with your service or your product offering. And so again, you need to acknowledge their pain. Now, you can still acknowledge, and this is how we train our team, we don't need to accept responsibility for what happened. We could say, you know what, thank you so much for telling me that. I want to try to figure this out together. You don't have to say, thanks so much for telling me about that. We're so sorry that that happened. Or, yeah, we really messed up. We'll make it better next time. You can still make them feel validated without sharing that you are accepting the blame. So you can say, yeah, thank you so much for telling me that information. I certainly don't want you to feel that pain. Let's figure out how we can work on this together. And right now people are frustrated, and it might not be about you, but they might make it about you. And really, you're going to keep your customers, you're going to expand and strengthen your relationships with your customers by taking on responsibility for them, whether it's your fault or not. This is the time to show that. So I just wanted for you guys to keep that in mind as you're talking through pains that might be associated with your business. And so the other part of recognizing and listening is associated to buying signals.
And this is really the second piece you're listening for as far as the active listening component. buying signal, right? This is someone that's not really saying, oh, I'm looking to buy next week, we're buying in 6 months. It's something that maybe someone says, yeah, we don't have a need now. It's going to be down the road in the future where we're going to be looking at adding a new DC or upgrades or facility redesign. Could be looking at retrofit or moving to a different power solution. We got to get away from EPA regulations, all that stuff, right? And those are some examples. And it's funny because when I've worked with sales reps over the years, they'll, if they're struggling getting appointments or struggling uncovering a purchasing need, I'll go back into their CRM and I'll see notes like this. Oh, no expansion plans now, could be something down the road. Okay, what's down the road? These guys are not thinking today, tomorrow. I couldn't tell you how many times when working with sales reps that they called back and defined and they got the definition of down the road. Down the road was 6 months from now. Like they're not thinking that is now. And to us, that's okay. That's perfect. I need to get in front of them. I need to start building that rapport, relationship, so I have a shot. Acknowledge that, right? Oh, I get you're not purchasing now. You're going to be looking down the road. Okay, got that. Hey, I get I'm not trying to sell you today, but define down the road. I know it's not immediate need. However, I want you to get a better understanding of myself and my company. I want us to be an option or resource for you. Restate your intention to really fulfill their needs or their help. So define those buying signals. If they're saying it's not today, it's in the future, or they give you those types of verbiage or worded, define it. Where do I fit? When do I fit?
Yeah. And right now, that the budgetary approval or the approval to start a new project, to purchase a piece of equipment, to start with working with a new provider, not every company has the ability to make changes right now because of the pandemic and a lot of those frozen budgets, or people that just really don't even understand their level of decision making authority at a time like this. And so they might not know exactly what that need is. So you do your best, as Jason said, to define it and to get a time frame associated with it. But you can also, say, well, I understand that so many, customers are burdened with really not knowing what the future holds or with uncertainty. I'm going to be staying in front of you as this time passes, to make sure that as your business is making changes in the future, I'm there to be a resource to you. So, I'm going to be checking in with you every other week. I'm going to be checking in with you once a month, whatever that time frame is, setting that expectation to further define the future, I think is really important right now. And it's a way that you can really buy some goodwill and be there for your customers and prospects. So we've talked about how to recognize buying signals. We've talked about how to recognize pain, open up on pain, ask a lot of open-ended questions to really get that conversation started. But we know that in any conversation that we're going to face objections. It might happen a minute into the call. It might happen 5 minutes into the call or meeting. And so we're going to take you through some common ones and how to really overcome those objections, starting with the brush off.
And the first objection is the brush off. And you saw there some of the keys to getting past any objection is restating your purpose and asking your open-ended question to get them talking. And I've done a lot of research inside of different objections. And I recall jumping into CRM, looking over a lot of employees' work. And this was a common objection I seen. Like I'll see their notes there of the call they log. Oh, they said, send me an email with information, or I don't have a need for anything right now. And I would go in there and I'd look at that inside of their notes. And what I saw after that, especially the send me an email, was 10 to 15 calls following that specific call. 6 months later, maybe even longer before they actually got that person back on the phone. Maybe they will open your email, maybe they won't. The point is, try getting past that objection. Just send me an email with some information. Yeah, I'd love to do that. But again, I'm trying to get an understanding of your operations to see even if we fit as a company or if we can be an option or resource for you. Hit them with the open-ended questions. How are you moving product through your facility? What type of automation do you have in place today? I don't need anything right now. Oh, that's fine. Great. Just trying to get an understanding of your operations and maybe be a resource when you do have needs. You mentioned you don't have a need now. When do you evaluate your needs? When do you evaluate budget? So the key of this is, again, you're controlling that conversation, address it. Okay. I get you don't have nothing now. Overcome it by controlling that conversation, asking an open-ended question to direct it back. Purpose is key.
Yep, and as you're getting hit with send me an email. We know we've got a lot of integrators or manufacturers of highly specialized equipment or software solutions on the line, and those companies that we work with a lot of times have plenty of case studies and white papers. Send me an email with some information. Well, what type of information? Like Jason said, what can I send you an email about? Get that content that your marketing team worked so hard to put together out to your prospects and customers. The next objection that we have is about competition. So the customer mentions that they're already working with someone for that project or service. Of course, we hear that all the time, right? No one doesn't have providers lined up or companies that they've been doing business with to fulfill their needs. So we already use ABC Company for that. Well, what types of questions can we ask here? Well, how long have you worked with them? What's your experience been? Are you happy with the level of customer service that you're receiving? Are they an execution partner for you, or are they a strategy partner for you? How often are you seeing your rep, and how often are you feeling the love from them? These are questions that you can ask. They're not necessarily talking poorly about the competition, right? We don't want to beat down their current provider. That's not a good look. But asking, why they like them might be able to lead into future conversation as to how to be a secondary provider for them or their new provider in the future. The next one is as procrastination. Jason's going to take this.
Call me back in 3 months. We can't talk now. I'm in the middle of something. Can you give me a call back? I've looked at notes for this, and guess what? 10, 15 calls later, 6, 9 months later, they finally get the person back on the phone. Define it, push back. Call me back in 3 months. We can talk about it then. Well, what's happening in 3 months? Is there a project in 3 months? Right? Define you could call me back. Is there a specific need that you're going to be looking for? Again, state your purpose. Hey, I'm calling you because of this. Ask your questions to define those things. Don't be hung up on when it says call me back in 3 months. Define that.
Yeah. And the next one we'll talk through is budget. And again, I've talked about this a couple times today. People don't know what's going on with their budgets. The customer brings up the fact that they don't have a budget for those types of purchases. Well, depending on where you're at in the call, you might not even have positioned a purchase of something. So you can ask, well, I don't know what types of purchases you're talking about. I need to learn about what types of purchases you make to even talk about budget and time frame and things of that nature. Especially again with the folks that we have on the line today, it's sometimes rare that people have budgets established and budgets approved without scoping projects, without you going in and being consultative. It's really budgetary time is really a time where they're looking at the ROI analysis of your product, service, solution, et cetera. And so you can share that with your customers. Hey, rarely do people have a budget established. Let me help you establish a budget by telling you how we can save you money on your personnel, or how you can mitigate against downtime, et cetera, to really build and open up that money to be spent elsewhere. So we went through the common objections, and we're going to run through the rest of the call here, talking about the close and then some common objections. So far, you've had a pretty open-ended conversation. Now it's time to really close down and set the expectation for the future.
So we had this detailed conversation. Now it's time to get off the phone. But understand there's 3 types of closes. One, it's not an opportunity. How do I get off the phone, right? If it's not an opportunity, it's not sales. It's a future opportunity. Well, how do I get off the phone with that? Or it's an immediate opportunity. So if it's no opportunity, same thing. Set yourself expectations. I'll give you a call at 9 months. Or future opportunity. Hey, I get you're going to be looking in December. I'll give you a call back in October, November. Immediate opportunity. I know this is something they're looking at pricing on. I'll be out there next Wednesday, 2 p.m. And one thing, or at least one tip in front of this before we kind of dive into this strategy from this, I've watched people struggle on the mid-conversation close. So they'll uncover need, right in the middle of the conversation, they're off the phone. They're not pushing the call. My advice to you is continue asking those open-ended questions just to take it to the next level. I get that you have an opportunity today, but It's okay to continue that conversation by getting a feel for the rest of the product service, getting a feel for the operation, pain points, etc.
Yeah. And so here's the strategy behind the close itself. And it seems simple, but Jason and our organization, we live by this principle. And I'll let you, Jason, explain it before I put a little color to it.
So when working with sales reps, I train them to get off the phone with expectation confirmation close. I always ask them, what's the last thing you remember in the conversation? Well, every response that everybody gives me is, what's the last thing we just spoke about? Always end your call with an expectation so it's clear. I'll be out there next Wednesday, 2 p.m. to discuss your warehouse and redesign plans in 6 months. I'll send a counter invite and I'll see you here next Wednesday, 2 p.m. Expectation, confirmation, expectation.
Yeah. And this expectation, confirmation, expectation doesn't need to be just on appointment set. It doesn't need to be just on webinar set. It can be about your further nurturing and your further relationship with this customer or prospect. If you say you're going to follow up, though, you better follow up. Uh, this is a test of your level of attention that you're going to give them. This shows them customer service before they're a customer. And this is something I think a lot of people forget when they're thinking of prospecting and calling. Well, this customer or prospect wants to hear from you often. Otherwise, they probably don't want to do business from you. They might not be thrilled every time you call to talk about their future needs, but you're being persistent, you're disciplined, and you're showing them that you want their business. So it's, again, a way to show that customer service before they're a customer. You have the opportunity to show them that with prospecting, and I think you should take it. And another tip here in terms of follow up is if they say that they want you to follow up in January and you find out there's a reason behind that, follow up in December. Follow up a couple weeks beforehand, because they might be actively shopping at that point, and you really want to be on the forefront, against your competition there. So we've gone through a lot today. We're going to walk through the common pitfalls that you might have inside of prospecting as our final slide today. And Jason's going to walk through this for you.
And these are the pitfalls and bad habits that I've uncovered over years of working with employees. And I'm giving you guys a head start just to nip it before you guys pick up that phone. Leader need approach. Don't go in there going for the sale today. We talked about this, right? You're building your pipeline for tomorrow. Don't go in there saying, hey, what are you buying today? Are you looking to purchase this today? No. Where do I fit? When do I fit? What products and services do I have? Where can we fit to quote on that or be an option for you? Lack of structure, again, not survey. You don't want to bounce around, right? Go in there, prioritize the products or services that you want to have a structured approach to, deliver that. Not making the most of attempted calls. And again, if an attempted call, you call this company, and I see this all the time, you call it, it goes nowhere, you're done, you're never calling that company back. This is a puzzle. Every company is a puzzle. Your job, every single call is gathering a puzzle piece, a name of a decision maker, an email of a decision maker, right? Type of automation, types of, gather that puzzle piece, not presenting or grouping all products or services together. Huge. We talked about listing the products and services that you can discuss in the call. Don't keep in mind, you have to present them all. Where do I fit? When do I fit? If you work to get all your no's, a lot of people hear that first no or two no's, they're off the phone. Work to get all your no's. We often taught that. And don't group everything together. Don't list out all 5, 6 products you're trying to represent and say, well, do you have a need there? No, I don't have a need. Work for your no's. Ignoring buying signals. Nothing's happening now. Maybe down the road. Define that. That's a buying signal. If someone gave you a time frame of nothing happening now, when is that going to happen? When do they look at those types of things? Not simply closing or suggesting they don't have a need. Oh, as far as your automation, you don't have a need, right? You just gave yourself an objection. Not setting tasks or KPIs. One, you have to manage your day-to-day, right, on who you're calling and mix it up for phone calls, emails, etc. But have dedication and hold yourself accountable to hourly activities or daily activities.
And so there's a lot to remember. And, those common pitfalls and that checklist should certainly help you. Again, there's really not a true secret sauce to prospecting. It's a combination of everything that we learned today, the strategy, the preparation, the intro, the open-ended questions, etc. And so we hope that today was helpful. We hope that you are excited to get back on the phones and to approach this with discipline and with what you learned today. For those who were participating today, there will also be a recording of the video that's coming out. For those who may have taken the day off, hopefully you're watching this video on Monday and are getting some value from it. If you have any questions or any needs, please do not hesitate to reach out. My contact information is on the screen. You should have also had my contact information as part of the invite. I hope that everyone stays healthy, productive, and in good spirits during this challenging time. We certainly feel for you and know that it's uncertain, but the only thing that's going to get us out of here is continuing to look to the future and continuing to set ourselves up for success. So thank you everyone again for your attendance. I hope you all have a nice holiday weekend and look forward to hearing from you soon. Bye-bye.